The two terrorists who shot and killed 15 people in Sydney have been identified as 50-year-old Sajid Akram, suspected to be of Pakistani origin, and his 20-year-old son Naveed, born in Australia. Sajid Akram was shot dead by the security forces in a counter-terror operation. His son Naveed was shot at, is critical, but is in custody. He is believed to be safe after the shooting in hospital. Naveed, incidentally, was on the radar of Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, or ASIO, 6 years ago for suspected association with those linked to the Islamic State or ISIS Daesh. He was let off the radar only to surface at the time of this deadly massacre, the worst terror attack in Australia's history in the past 30 years.
Hanukkah celebrations at Sydney's iconic Bondi Beach on Sunday turned into sheer horror. A brazen terror attack on a crowded gathering has left at least 16 people dead. Two armed attackers opened fire on civilians. Panic-stricken revelers fled the beach. The police responded immediately. One attacker was shot dead while the second was shot at. He later surrendered, bleeding. The attackers were a father and son duo of Pakistani origin. 24-year-old Naveed Akram remains in critical condition, while his father, 50-year-old Sajid Akram, was killed on the spot. Amid the chaos, 43-year-old Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a Sydney fruit shop owner, displayed extraordinary courage, tackling and disarming one of the gunmen. The Australian Prime Minister called the attack shocking and distressing, a targeted terror strike against Jews, and pushed for stricter gun laws.
There is no place for this hate, violence and terrorism in our nation. Let me be clear, we will eradicate it. Amidst this vile act of violence and hate will emerge a moment of national unity, where Australians across the board will embrace their fellow Australians of Jewish faith at this dark moment for our nation.
The US President also condemned the attack.
Likewise in Australia, as you know, there was a terrible attack, 11 dead, 29 badly wounded. And that was an anti-Semitic attack, obviously. And I just want to pay my respects to everybody. I just want to pay my respects to the families. We also had 3 injured, but 2 of them are already out of the hospital and one's going to be okay.
Israel strongly condemned the assault, accusing Australia of ignoring warnings on rising anti-Semitism.
On August 17th, about 4 months ago, I sent Prime Minister Albanese of Australia a letter in which I gave him warning that the Australian government's policy was promoting and encouraging anti-Semitism in Australia.
The attack turned a moment of faith and festivity into chaos and bloodshed. A tragedy that has shaken Australia to its core. With Pranay Upadhyay, Bureau Report, India Today.
So Jewish families had gathered at the beach to mark the first night of Hanukkah, a celebration of faith, of heritage, of identity. But that very identity made them targets of radical Islamist terror. At least as of now, security agencies believe, or at least reports from Australia seem to indicate, that the suspected terrorists are of Pakistani origin. Anti-Semitism has surged across the world since the Israel-Gaza war erupted in October 2023. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hit out at the Australian government, saying he'd warned Anthony Albanese but the Australian government policies rewarded the terrorists.
"15 dead, scores injured, hundreds traumatized for life. Their crime, they belong to a community." Jewish families had gathered at Sydney's Bondi Beach to mark the first night of Hanukkah, a celebration of faith, of heritage, of identity. That very identity made them targets. Anti-Semitism has surged across the world since the Israel-Gaza war erupted in October 2023. And the numbers are stark. In regions like the United States and Europe, reported anti-Semitic incidents have nearly tripled. 14 innocent lives were lost in the Bondi Beach shooting. In Manchester, 2 people were stabbed to death at a community event in October. 2 more were killed in a shooting near the Capitol Jewish Museum in the heart of Washington, D.C. In Germany, a knife attack in February left 1 person injured. All major attacks, all in 2025 alone. Australia too had seen the warning signs, but they were ignored. Anti-Semitic incidents have risen sharply, down under since the Israel-Gaza conflict began. In just the past year, Australia recorded 166 attacks targeting the Jewish community, with Sydney and Melbourne emerging as flashpoints. Aussie Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has acknowledged that this was an act of evil anti-Semitism.
An act of evil anti-Semitism, terrorism, that has struck the heart of our nation. An attack on Jewish Australians is an attack on every Australian. There is no place for this hate, violence and terrorism in our nation.
Yet he faces mounting criticism from Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who argues that the attack reflects a failure to act decisively against rising hate.
On August 17th, about 4 months ago, I sent Prime Minister Albanese of Australia a letter in which I gave him warning that the Australian government's policy was promoting and encouraging anti-Semitism in Australia.
And Netanyahu's warning may not be unfounded. Hamas has refused to express sympathy over the Bondi attack, instead issuing veiled threats of more such violence to come.
Personally, I feel Netanyahu is responsible for these acts that take place and cause hatred.
This was not an isolated act. And if extremist ideologies are to be stopped, the worst may have to move beyond words and adopt a far tougher, zero-tolerance approach. Bureau Report, India Today.